Hey, good morning, everybody. Yeah, I know I repeat myself sometimes lately in these beginning of these videos, but like I told you, it's going to be a little strange. It's about 6:45, I believe, on this Monday morning. I've got to be at work basically within the next 11 hours and 15 minutes. Yeah, 11 hours, 15 minutes, and well, that's when I start work. It's the next 11 hours, 15 minutes. But I also leave essentially in the next 11 hours, 49 minutes, or 11 hours, 50 minutes, if you will, whatever you want to call it. Well, actually, 11 hours, 41 minutes, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, well, I just gotta leave the house by 6:24, child. Anyway, getting on topic here. A lot of you probably saw Slammiversary last night, and if you didn't, according to some people, you missed a very good show. Um, I can't really know what they mean by that, but yeah, some people say that you've missed a really good show. It is very newsworthy due to the fact that two TNA originals, I guess you could say, one that's been there since almost the beginning, or basically since the beginning, and one that's been there for the past few years, but at times was in limbo until like last year or so, are going to be leaving the company. One is heading towards Global Force Wrestling. The other might be going in that direction, but then again might finally, go to WWE, maybe Ring of Honor. We're not really sure, but more than likely, this individual will follow. This individual will follow the other one towards Global Force Wrestling, and and that wasn't the only newsworthy thing. We also found out that another person will be leaving TNA. After last night, even though they're contractually obligated to a few more appearances due to the tapings. And the question is he going to go to GFW? Or is he going to go back to Ring of Honor? Or is he finally going to take a chance and step up to the plate and compete in the WWE, mostly, try his hand. Sorry, a little itchy there. Try his hand, I should say, at WWE's NXT brand. And if that's not enough, two other names were brought up. Two other names. Oops. Sorry. There we go. Two other names were brought up last night too, as potentially leaving the company, and those two are involved right now in a feud in the Knockouts division, and one, tape-wise, tape-wise, or however you want to look at it, taping-wise, is currently the champion of the Knockouts division, but is sort of a former champion. These individuals that I speak of are James Storm and Magnus, that I started out with, Austin Aries, as well as Awesome Kong and Taryn Tyrell. Now, what's funny about this, and I'm sorry, my seat's kind of going down, we got to get this thing adjusted. There we go. Now, what's funny about this is Kong and Tyrell, they both came on to Twitter and denied any rumors or reports that they were leaving TNA. And they were going to stick with it for as long as they have to. Kong even mentioned that she was going to ring in the new year with TNA. Now, there's a lot of people that have been speculating that the only reason Kong and Tyrell would say that is because TNA, mostly the officials at TNA, want them to do whatever they can to deny the reports. Now, that might be true, and maybe they're denying it themselves. Maybe they don't know the whole truth. I mean, let's face fact. None of the talent really knows what's going on with TNA. All they know is from what they hear from Bob Ryder, Dixie Carter, Mike Tenay, and whoever, James, JB, James Borash, or whoever might be, in the know. They only know from them of exactly what's going on. Exactly what's going on. So, yeah. So, yeah. Basically, they may not know what's going on, and I do apologize if I'm kind of pausing a little bit here. I just woke up, but like I said, that they may not know what's going on, so that might be why they're denying it. But it's just kind of weird, that not just weird, but it's almost ironic. And I mentioned this briefly when I talked about Jeff Jarrett returning to Impact. The owner and founder of Global Force Wrestling returning to Impact the way he did, and what it could mean. And one of the topics that I mentioned there, and a lot of people have been talking about, is the potential of a Global Force Wrestling total nonstop action merger. In other words, a GFW TNA merger. Some people have speculated, whether it be fans, inside sources, writers, you name it. They've all been speculating at the fact that GFW is going to absorb TNA into it. And that all the talent and production staff and those involved with TNA will be basically working for GFW before it's all said and done. And when you have a rumor, when you have talks and rumors like that going around, and you look at how much it ties into, ironically, what's going on with the departure of a long-time TNA original, someone that's been there since the beginning, like a James Storm, a TNA original that's been there since about 2008, 2009, and still has so many years ahead of him. The departure of his wife, who wants to have one more match in TNA, and then is going to join him in Global Force Wrestling, and that being Mickie James. And then you have Austin Aries, and then the rumors of Tyrell and Kong. It's like, it's just so, to me, it's just too coincidental and too ironic for all these things to be popping up, and for all these contracts to be expiring and not being renewed. And the reason I say that is because I almost look at TNA, because like I said, TNA is not going to tell their knockouts and their wrestlers everything. It's kind of like a company, and I know this better than anybody. It's kind of like a company not telling you everything about the change in management. Last year or so, going into in between the mid part of last year or so, we started to see a change in management. The store manager that was there when I started in February 2014, by mid-year was gone. We didn't know what the reason was at first. Some people said it was due to a sickness, physical illness or something like that. But we found out that he's actually been working on having ownership of a grocery outlet store. So yeah, of a grocery outlet store in Modesto. So yeah, that was the reason. One of the reasons, if not the main reason, we found out that he was gone. And then, surprise, surprise, if that's not enough, the lady that took over as store owner and was a very good lady, Christy. She ends up leaving and becoming the store owner over in Atwater for Walmart. The guy that hired me, Tony, gone. Don't know what happened. Probably went to Atwater as well. We don't know. Retired. We don't know. A lot of people that were there when I started in February, and essentially been there with the store since it began, since its foundation was laid down, were gone. They were gone. History. And some of them, like Christy, wasn't even there for about a year. And she came on about the same time me and everybody else that got hired did. And she came on as a co-store owner. So, yeah, it's just weird. And nobody told us she was leaving until, like a day or two, about a week or so before it happened. Well, basically about the week it happened. We didn't know about this. And all of a sudden, you're having all this changing of the guard. Here comes new assistant managers, taking over for these assistant managers, And it's like, what's going on? And basically, that's how I feel TNA is right now. They're doing exactly what my store and any other company does sometimes, and that's not tell the talent, their employees, their associates, that work day and night for them for 4 to 6 to 8 hours. They're not telling them everything. And again, that's how I feel TNA is right now with their talent, with their roster. They're not telling the knockouts. They're not telling the superstars. Heck, they may not even tell the production staff or the commentary team, for all we know. And I did mention some, two of those commentary members. They're not saying anything. They're not saying anything to them. They're not telling them everything. Because I think if they were to tell them the truth, that TNA is financially not doing so well and is probably on the point of shutting down, that every single one of them, along with those knockouts and superstars, or the knockouts and wrestlers, I should say, that are smart enough to kind of understand that maybe something's not right here, maybe we should stop booking these indie things, maybe we should start asking for releases sooner than usual, maybe try out this, these other options, maybe Global Force Wrestling. It's, to me, it's like TNA knows that if they were to tell the truth, every single man and woman on that roster, every single man and woman on that production staff, every single man and woman behind the scenes in the booking and all that, every single man and woman on commentary, and in the announcing, ring announcing, whatever, would say, you know what? If that's what's happening, if TNA is on the verge of going out of business, guess what? We're heading out. We're getting out of here before, as a lot of people put it, this Titanic fully sinks due to the iceberg. And that's how some fans look at it. They look at TNA being the Titanic that constantly rams into the iceberg, or rams into iceberg after iceberg after iceberg, and has now finally hit that proverbial iceberg that's going to cause it to sink to the bottom of the ocean. And just like those that built the Titanic and said not even God himself, and I'm not sure if someone really said this, they said, we know Billy Zane's character said it in the movie in 1987, but we don't know. Maybe somebody did say this. Maybe a few people said this back in 1912. But if those people thought God couldn't sink that ship, guess what? He did. He put an iceberg in front of them that was big enough to prove them wrong. It's like my pastor said yesterday. There are certain situations that have happened throughout the past 15, 16 years, in the past decade and a half, that the Lord Almighty could have easily prevented from happening. And God could have easily prevented that iceberg from hitting. He could have pushed that away, and the Titanic would have sailed effortlessly, excuse me for not saying that correctly, but the Titanic would have sailed effortlessly right into the New York harbor. But it didn't, because God wanted to prove to those that probably pointed out and said, hey, you won't be able to, you the Almighty God, will not be able to sink this ship, did just that. And that, as strange as a comparison as it is exactly how fans look at what's going on with TNA. The TNA has finally hit that proverbial iceberg that is basically going to finally make them sink to the bottom of the ocean. And it's going to land them into what is known as the wrestling promotion graveyard. That's what's going to happen. Let's, speaking of Titanic, let's take a look at that movie. Let's take a look at how it's been depicted in documentaries. How they always say one piece broke off and went this way, and then the other piece stood up on its end for who knows how long before it finally started to descend down to the bottom as well. Imagine that front piece that went down and separated and collapsed miles away from the original wreckage. Imagine that being the first portion of TNA going down. Imagine that maybe being Slammiversary, that piece of the Titanic ship that went this way, that's the Slammiversary of this year. That is basically the last Slammiversary ever, and it's gone. And now it's gone, and essentially that first half gone with it. And now the Titanic, known as TNA, is starting to tip up and go like this, and it's starting its end in the eyes of many fans. It's starting its slow descent to the bottom. And the reason I say that is because of the ironicness of the fact that Jeff Jarrett's been brought back. There's talks of a Global Force Wrestling merger. You have Magnus going to GFW. You have Mickey going with him. You have James Storm, a guy that's been there since the beginning, leaving the company, or done with the company. You have Austin Aries done with the company. You had rumors of Tyrell and Kong being done with the company, even though they've denied it. You have several other talents that have come and gone in the past year or two, because they all see the signs and they know they're not being told everything. It's like they know that TNA is indeed the Titanic, and it's just now in a situation to where it's at that final point before it drops to the bottom. And to me, again, it's just too ironic. I mean, last night at Slammiversary, Jeff Jarrett, in what was supposed to be his last TNA in-ring match, won the match that he had basically created called the King of the Mountain. But not only did he do that, but he became the first ever King of the Mountain champion. Yeah, they had a physical belt which was actually, get this, the belt that they had made for the King of the Mountain Championship was the championship that was originally known first as the Legends Championship, the Global Championship, and the Television Championship. And now it's the King of the Mountain Championship. And even Jeff Jarrett said in a backstage interview you can see on the TNA YouTube page that this belt is going to have an impact on TNA and GFW. Or essentially said something like that. And what that tells me is TNA just physically gave, for free, Jeff Jarrett a championship that he could rechristen the GFW World Title. And a lot of fans have even pointed that out. I mean, here's one thing that's crazy. Some fans point out that TNA can afford to create a green replica version